Well, for starters, after the victory of the platform in court, the presidential aspirant Robert Kyagulanyi's path seems to have one hurdle taken out of the way. So what's next for what becomes of Uganda's 10th president, if I should put it that way? So we're here in Kyamagero to find the answers to the questions of that and much more. And the hashtag is Morning at NTV. I want to recommend and thank those already running by the hashtag We're Live. Many of you had doubts that possibly we couldn't make it here, but get what? We use the rubber-dub style, and finally we got here in time. Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning, Andrew. How have you been?
It's been long. You last had an exclusive interview of this magnitude, if I should be exact, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
You've not been talking to the media exclusively unless it has been something very patent and you've been in battles of court. But for starters, I want to start with NUP court victory.
Yes, please.
What does it mean to you and to your candidates and to the party as the president of the party?
Well, it is good news, but again, it is not new. This was a bogus case, like we said in the beginning, and we are glad the judge agreed with us. This was largely to derail us, to cut our speed, and of course to vulgarize the National Unity Platform. And sadly, by and large, our detractors achieved their intention because it was mainly to cut our speed, and they managed to take quite some substantial piece of our time.
Did this in one or the other disorganize you? Because we had a court case running, we had your offices, raided, and a lot of stuff was taken. Did this badly affect the agenda you wanted to move with?
Yes, it did. I really like to be optimistic, but I won't hesitate to talk about the negative. It affected us greatly. It created a lot of doubt, and I want to believe it was intended to create that doubt. Many people were not able to nominate on our ticket as should have been. We had about 400. We had 427 members of parliament that picked our ticket to nominate, but ultimately only 238 nominated. Why? Very many of them freaked out because they thought the party was going to be, squashed, and others, it really affected us greatly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really need to commend you for the fight you put up in courts of law and all that. But what does this mean to the constitutional ruling of Uganda here when we go to the constitutional bit? Your court case with the NUP being in court and it comes out greatly and winning. I know it is a precedent that was set.
Yeah.
But what does this mean to the constitution of this country, especially that you're vying for presidency?
Well, this is not to mean that Uganda has rule of law. No. I want to believe that it benefited the regime greatly, because if again they ruled it in a bogus way, like the case was brought, it would have affected him much more than it would have affected us. Yeah.
So it was not anything to benefit NUP, it benefited the regime.
It is not anything to celebrate. It is like me taking your jacket from you and then giving it back to you, and then I claim I'm a just person. Yeah.
Bobi Wine, when we look at the conflicts within NUP over flag bearers, if the party is to put in place reconciliation efforts, are there efforts already trying to reconcile those who feel they were a little bit marginalized or sidelined in getting the NUP cards?
Well, definitely the efforts are there. As you know, political parties are by nature exclusive. Only one person will pick the ticket, and you see that we were in a situation where we had in some constituencies more than 10 people running on a people power ticket. Now you should remember that NUP is just the political version, the registered version of people power. So ultimately we had to get one candidate. It's for the benefit of the voters, because we've always insisted that we shouldn't divide the vote. But of course each one of them felt that they were the deserving candidate. Okay. So there was basically that disappointment.
As a leader, did you enjoy when you saw this kind of wave and and the competition among the youthful age trying to get involved. When you saw all this, regardless of what became later of the NUP cards and all, did you appreciate the process for them?
Certainly, it is very encouraging to see that so many people, especially young people, are, you know, gravitating with us, thinking like us, and they're willing to take the risk with us. Remember that other parties were actually paying nomination fees for their candidates. We did not have nomination fees, and on account of that, we lost more than 180 candidates. So it is very motivating to see that people, especially young people, are believing with us. And yes, the efforts are still ongoing to bring them all back in the fold and fight together.
Okay, so how many candidates do we have from NUP currently who are holding the NUP card across the country, the different regions? And how is NUP ensuring that they win? Or because your approach in your vying for your candidacy for Chadondo, your approach was guard your vote. That was the approach. So going forward with the NUP, how are you making sure that they're not cheated even in the wake of a lot of the state machinery around?
Thank you. Like I said in the beginning, we initially had 427 candidates for Member of Parliament across the country. But ultimately, we were only able to nominate 237. Many of them were intimidated because of the court case, and others actually did not have the money. We did not afford to pay for all of them. We give thanks to all the Ugandans here in Uganda and abroad that helped us fundraise for those candidates that could not afford the nomination fee. Now you see the intention of raising the parliamentary nomination fee is to kick out opposition candidates that don't have the opportunity to benefit from the state coffers, you know. And about 28 of them were simply not nominated. Some were arrested on the way to nomination, others because of late payment, you know, while others, like I told you, were simply blocked from nomination. And through our legal team, we continue to find means to, we continue to appeal for them. I believe that through our legal team, we'll be able to have that sorted because it's provided within our law. Yeah.
Well, Bobby Wine, you've always put forward that this, your party, the new party, it's a youth-led party. If I could go back, this was in 2015, on quote, you said that we want a party in our generation that does not brag of the 1986 or of the war, but a party that understands our generational trends, our problems, and with our own solutions. You've vied for this and you've thumped your chest so strongly about this party, and it's for the youth. Going forward, how is the party positioning itself for the youth MP elections that are soon coming?
To begin with, Andrew, it's interesting that all my life I've not seen the opposition involve itself in youth elections. It started with the National Unity Platform, a party that was about 2 weeks old when the youth elections came up. So this has been largely an NRM affair. In many areas, it's the RDCs, the DSOs, and the PSOs that only feel the leaders for the youth. So we pride ourselves in awakening the young people massively. We took part and indeed won massively. Wherever we fronted candidates, we won up to 98%. Of course, like I told you, our party was only 2 weeks old, so we could only do so much. We've been able to win on village level, on parish level, and on district level, and we're certainly fronting youth candidates.
Okay. Going forward, looking at very many political parties around the globe, but I'll come back here in Africa. When you look at Chama Mapinduzi, they have an ideology that really drives their agenda. We have the ANC, it has what drives the agenda, of course, with the Mukonzi wa Siziwe on the other side. Looking at the NUP party, what ideology does it run by? That's because people subscribe to ideologies, and these are the ideologies that drive them over time. The youth understand your vibe, they understand your direction, but what ideology is there that they can possibly subscribe to, and maybe they could be members? You know, you could be a fan of a party, but being a member, it's unique. So what unique ideology do the members subscribe to? Because maybe some of us are struggling to understand the ideology.
Well, you shouldn't be struggling to understand.
Okay.
The word ideology has been largely vulgarized.
Yes.
Some actually call it ideology. But in simple terms, what are we about as the National Unity Platform? We are about servant leadership. We are about basically a new Uganda. Today we are unveiling our poster, and soon we'll be unveiling our manifesto. But we are about a new Uganda run on servant leadership. You know, our 5 core values, our 5 core targets are: 1, the respect of human rights and the rule of law, revamping our education system, revamping our healthcare system, you know, revamping agriculture, national unity and reconciliation, and of course, refixing our international affairs. But all this runs for the people. Just like we were saying, people power is our power. It's about the people. It's about servant leadership. It's about elevating the citizens above and then making the leaders true servants that they should be.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Servant leadership is a conversation we're having. We're live from Magere here in Chadondo. I'm seated with the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu, and we are having a lot of conversation. The hashtag is Morning at NTV. In a bit, I'll be sampling your questions. There are quite lots of questions on the online from around the globe. The diaspora team has a lot of questions they are posting. I'll get to that a little later. Now, Honorable Kyagulanyi, the Kyagulanyi journey to State House. Yeah. Well, now that the court battle has been declared, the nomination is imminent. What does Kyagulanyi plan for Ugandans beyond the change song? Because you're saying we need the change, but we need to know what is beyond the change song, and what is your plan? At least we need to hear a snippet of what you plan for the country. I listened to your interview when you were at a radio station in Ginger, and you addressed, they're called the triple A's or the 4 A's.
A's.
Yes,
yeah.
But that was a very small ice beat to the bigger question. I need to understand what you have in plan for Ugandans, because people would say, yes, I'm going to go with Kyagulanyi, he wants the change. But what exactly are we talking about the change? Then what's the call to action for the citizens?
Thank you very much. I am glad you are asking that question again, and I'm even gladder that you touched the education and the triple A's.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you were reading the comments on my Twitter that almost convinced me to turn them into the 4 A's. Yeah. Our education system is what I'll talk about, because we can't have enough time to talk about the entire vision of our new.
That will be in the manifesto.
Exactly. Education. Like Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon with which you can change the nation and indeed the world. Our education system has to be anchored on the 3 A's. Now I'm thinking of making them 4 A's. And that is the academics, the arts, athletics, and now the 4th A, which came from my friend Kakensa, should be agriculture. Why? We are building a new Uganda, and that new Uganda begins from what we put in the minds of our people. Academics is what we focus on these days, and it's not even enough, and that explains why we import doctors and export house girls and security guards. Yes, academics are important, but not everybody is going to be an academic giant. One of my friends, Silva Kyagulanyi, one time said, and I agree with him, that talent is the only hope of Africa. Most of the times when our flag has been raised sky high, it has been because of either the arts or the academics. So while in school, we want to give the same emphasis like we give to academics, to the arts. That is the only way we're going to produce more Bobi wines from school, more chameleons, more baby cools, more Eddie Kenzos, more Fidel tires, and others. And these will not only be talented, but they will be trained to manage that talent and also nurture other talents. The athletics, look at Kipsiro, look at Kiprotich, look at Kasimo, look at Cheptegei, you know. And these are people that are self-built. But what if we build that talent, that athletic talent, right from school? And yes, you know, I've already talked about the academics, I've talked about the arts, and I've talked about the athletics. Now, one friend of mine talked about agriculture.
Kakensa.
Yes, and I really agree with him. You know, our generation, me and you, we grew up hating agriculture, looking at it as a punishment. But how about giving it fashion? How about giving it style? How about giving it a positive vibe? How about raising our children, you know, loving and believing and being innovative in agriculture? After all, we have the most amiable land here in Uganda, you know.
True.
So we want to use what we have to rise far high.
And what's the call to action for the citizens to see all this come to light?
To see the opportunity that we have and embrace it. This is not going to fall from the sky. A leader sees the way, goes the way, but most importantly, shows the way. Now, I see that new Uganda, but it's not enough for me to see it. It needs you, Andrew, to see it as well. It needs those young men and women in Kamocha, in Kanoni, in Kaberamaido, in Rukunjiri, in Gulu, to see all that and go in there. We have all it takes. All we need is the leadership, and I am offering that leadership. All I need is the masses to come. Let's embrace it. Once I am president, then the journey to the promised land will have begun.
Thank you. That is Robert Kyagulanyi. That is very interesting, and I'll be very lucky to be in that generation that takes that angle.
You are lucky already.
I am.
We are going there together, man.
Well, every other generation that has toppled government, their fallen leaders seem to be in a very bad state. I'll give you an example. In France, when Louis XVI left and Marie Antoinette, they left the country penniless. They were destitute of sword. Hypothetically, Honorable, hypothetically, let's assume Museveni says that I am not going to run. And hypothetically, or as you believe,
He's running. Just
no.
say,
okay.
He says, I'm going to
okay, he runs and he
out.
loses,
Exactly.
and you win. How
Like
are
it's
you
gonna
going to
be.
treat your predecessor? Because we have seen in the past regimes, leaders here, it was only Binaisa who was here. The rest have always been in exile. So Kyagulanyi has won. You announced the president. You're no longer staying at Kyamagero here, but you're now in NTV or Nakasero. How would you treat the former president? Now you're the 10th president.
Well, to begin with, this is going to be a new Uganda. We want to live in a country where we have a resident former president who lives respectedly.
Come again. A resident former
president.
Nice one.
You know, who is respected,
Okay.
who we go to seek advice from. Of course, he has made a lot of mistakes. But again, two wrongs don't make it right. We want to have our President Museveni, who we respect, who is in his home in Rachtura, who we take very good care of. And that will communicate not only to the next former presidents, but to other, you know, leaders across Africa. Many times they are scared that they will be persecuted after they lose power, and that's why they cling on power. But that is not only up to us, that is up to him as well. It really, really depends on how it goes. We really want President Museveni to retire respectfully. So all of us have a role to play. While we have a role to play, he has a role to play. It's important that he does not go like a Bashir. It's important that he does not go like a Idi Amin. It is important that he goes like any other respectable former leader. And we will be glad as a generation to have our old man who we competed against, who we won. But now we go to him for guidance every once in a while. He has not only done bad things, he has done some good things, although his time is expired.
Okay. Yeah. Just of recent, I saw you going to Bulange Mengo.
Yeah.
People were paying keen attention to your movements with regards to Mengo. People like me, you've taken time without going back to Mengo. You still respected the king, you still respected the institution, but you only showed up at events that were meant for the king. You totally distance yourself from the Uganda politics. You say, you know what, I'm just going to go with the nation. Last week, we saw you at Bulange Mengo, and you talked to the premier, that is Owechitiwa Charles Peter Maiga, and he was patent in his deliberation. He said, we're going to look at those who are going to address and amplify our issues as Uganda. Now, Those issues, won't they conflict with the Ugandan issues on a whole?
Yeah, to begin with, Andrew, I'm a Muganda and I'm not shy to say that.
And same here.
You know, and it is not bad for me to go and seek support from Mengo. I have visited, you know, Busoga, and I intend to officially go visit the Chagazinga. I intend to go visit the Mukama of Bunyoro. I intend to go visit Oyo. I intend to go visit all traditional leaders and religious leaders, you know. I know that every region, every kingdom, every cultural institution has its aspirations. But again, we are Ugandans. Just like Buganda has its issues, Bunyoro has its issues, Busoga has its issues, Toro has its issues. All issues need to be addressed, especially issues that benefit all of us as a country, as a nation. We are a generation that is rainbow. My wife here is from Ankole. My closest friend is a Nubian. My 4 deputy presidents come from different regions, the north, the east, the west, and here in the central. So it is important that we look at all issues as nations. You must remember that this Uganda was created by all these tribes coming together, by all these cultures coming together. So it is important for our generation to respect these cultures.
How do you plan to balance all these issues now that they're coming from different walks of regions and different tribes? What is your strategy in balancing all these issues? And you say now we can have a middle ground and we can all shoot in the same direction.
Of course, it's for the people of Uganda. It is not only the Baganda that live in Buganda, not only the Banyankole that live in Ankole, and not only the Acholi that live in Acholi land, Busoga, Bugishu, etc. It is the issues of Ugandans, especially we, the new Ugandans, who are mixed up. Yeah.
Let's look at something to do with the diaspora. Someone would say that the government maybe is a little bit reluctant with Ugandans in the diaspora, but you're so much patent and very passionate about Ugandans in the diaspora.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the people in the diaspora?
Well, the people in the diaspora are supposed to be part of Uganda. It's very unfortunate that the current government is not only distancing the people in the diaspora, but it's disempowering them. For example, court recently ruled that Ugandans that live in the diaspora have the right to choose their leaders, have the right to cast their ballot. But again, the Electoral Commission came out and said they won't cast their vote because there's no money, and whatever explanation they gave. While I'm president, I intend to connect Ugandans that live in the diaspora. These people bring a lot of money back home. These people support a lot of work down here home. So it's important that we connect with them, especially in this generation, this .com generation that we live in. It is much, much easier. You can be outside of Uganda, but in Uganda, but run things here in Uganda. So the connectivity. But again, it all begins with governance. These Ugandans are living in very well-governed countries, and that is why they criticize the misgovernance back home most.
When we look at the state of late, or the reigning government, the president alluded to what he termed as external forces that are meant to cause anarchy and a distortion in form of funders. And he was saying all these, you could clearly tell that he was actually addressing these to the opposition. What's your comment on that, about the ruling government saying that they are funders who are funding people like you in opposition to create havoc? He calls them enemies of the progress.
You see, President Museveni amuses me sometimes.
Oh, really?
He made a very big mistake to document everything he went through in the armed struggle, in the violent struggle that brought him to power.
He made a very big mistake.
Yeah, he documented everything. Go and read the mustard seed.
I did, I've read.
You know, he would get support and assistance from Libya. Libya is not Uganda.
Mozambique.
He would get assistance from Mozambique, from Sweden, from Europe, and all these other foreign countries. Those are not Ugandan countries. Was he getting was he an enemy of Uganda? Is he now conceding that he was an enemy of Uganda? Well, if he conceded, does not mean all of us are like him. For example, We do not get any funding from foreigners. And even if we were getting, we are not destabilizing Uganda in any way. We are not violent. The support that we get from Ugandans here and abroad. These are Ugandans. Like I said, even if a Ugandan is in America or Vietnam or Brazil, they are Ugandans and they have 100% right about Uganda. The old man is just scared.
Well, with all that you've said, it actually gives me a better perspective now of what exactly is running. Going back to NUP,
yeah.
So what becomes of the candidates under NUP that failed to raise nomination fees? What's the way forward for them? Because yes, they got the card, they passed through the vetting process and they were actually the best candidates,
yeah.
But here we are, they don't have enough money for nomination fees.
Well, that is supposed to teach us, like one wise man said, we don't lose. We either win or we learn. Now that teaches us that as soon as we take power, we are going to make sure that we're going to decommercialize politics. Politics has been highly commercialized. How do you tell me that a poor person, no matter how qualified, has no right to lead their people? How do you make it 3 million for a person to run for member of parliament? That means a young, intelligent, qualified, but unemployed Ugandan cannot run for parliament. That means parliament, that means politics is a business. We have to change that. It never used to be like that, but now it's like that. I want to believe that it was intended to lock out the poor Ugandans and keep these loaded politicians who, of course, in many times are corrupt officials, to keep them in politics. We have to change that. This should speak to us.
Ideally, Bobi Wine, what do you think should be the amount of money someone should actually pay for a nomination fee in this dispensation where we are?
Yeah, before 2016, it was 200,000 to run for parliament, and then it went to 3 million shillings.
Oh, yeah.
That is wrong. We must decommercialize politics. Yeah.
What's your comment about police? Just a few days ago, I think last Thursday, online, before I slept, I saw your Secretary General was being arrested, and I followed the live conversation to the police. What's your comment about police's approach in the political season where we are? Because you've run battles with them on a daily, but I mean, there gets a time or a moment where you step and you say, but what's wrong with this?
Same question you ask, what is wrong with these people? And I have a few friends in the police, and they also don't like what they're being made to do. For example, you have also seen on social media, police and the military mounting posters and billboards for President Museveni. But the same police and the military have been seen removing my posters and banners, and also beating people for wearing my T-shirts and wearing the beret. It should be a shame to them. But I mean, that is what we are. That is where we are. It should communicate to you how rotten the police has become. The police has been reduced to criminals, to lawbreakers. It's a political police, and that is wrong. That is really wrong. That is what we must change. It is, and then it also goes further to show you how shameless the regime is and how shameless President Museveni is. It's like me composing a song, but again, you copy the song, but abolish the original, and you want the photocopy to be played. You have seen, we came up with the beret, and we came up with a red overall.
They're saying that is infringing the Gazette.
And this kind of attire, they copied it and we started wearing yellow berets and a yellow overall. And now they say the original is abolished, but the copy is legal. It's shameful,
Good morning at NTV. We're live from Magere here in Gayaza with Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu. A lot more interesting conversations. It's morning at NTV. That's the hashtag on Twitter, on Facebook, and far beyond. I'll take a break for now, but I'll be back shortly. We're still with the Honorable Kyagulanyi as he's still taking us on the real journey.